Imagine losing tens of thousands of dollars on your first, second, or third multifamily deal simply because you didn't know what you didn't know. This is the harsh reality for too many new investors, but it doesn't have to be yours. Hey, Small Axe community, it's your boy Nico. This show is dedicated to helping you use your small axe to build a personal empire. So, on this show, I'm going to share some real, raw, behind the scenes info that's going to help you build your own multifamily portfolio. So, if you enjoy this show, I would love it if you can share it with somebody that you think could get value from it and write a review. It's the only way that we can grow this thing. Now, let's get to work. Let's jump into this episode and start sharpening those axes. All right, so for today's podcast, I want to talk a little bit about avoiding costly mistakes. I know too many people that have lost money, myself included, and today we're going to jump into how we can avoid that. So I want to start with reason number one, which is the main reason why people lose money on their deals is because they get emotionally attached. Reason number one, don't get emotionally attached to a deal, especially in multifamily. People do it all the time in single family for their personal residence, but you cannot do that in multifamily. Now you're dealing with millions of dollars potentially. You cannot get emotionally involved in a deal. It comes down to the numbers. It always has to come down to the numbers. Ken McElroy calls it math. All it is math. Does the deal make sense mathematically? Or are you pushing for it because you love the location? You love the idea of holding and owning a multifamily property. You're in love with the title of being a multifamily investor, an apartment owner. Don't get wrapped up in that crap. You cannot. This is how people lose money. They look at a deal and they're like, well, it kind of makes sense. And then they start working on it and pencil whipping the deal and making and trying to make it work in every way possible. Then they get emotionally involved. Well, it has everything I need, except it's just not making sense. And guess what, guys? We all are sick. We all feel this at times. I am feeling it right now. I've been negotiating a deal for so long, like a year, with a guy, an owner, a small deal. And I can't, I can't, I keep racking my brain to try to go back and see how I can make the deal work at a higher price point. I can't do that, guys. You can't get emotionally involved. Stick to the numbers, stick to math, stick to what makes sense. Forget about how pretty it looks. Forget about what you think it will look like in a few years. Forget about the location being perfect. Forget about the structure of the building being made out of concrete block and that's all you look for. Forget about that stuff. Forget about the pretty colors. Forget about the idea that you can travel that there and maybe stay there, or maybe that it could be an Airbnb. Forget about that. Do the numbers work today? Do the numbers work based on your solid business plan? If so, go for it. If not, you might be leading with your emotions. Now, that's number one, emotions versus numbers. Okay. Don't get them jumbled. Stick with the numbers. Now, this leads us to number two, because sometimes we miscalculate things. Number two is underestimating expenses. When you're underwriting, yes, it is an art form. It's not necessarily a science, but it is a science to a degree. If the math is working out and you have gone through your due diligence and you figured everything out, that what the expenses actually are, the actual expenses, and if it's making sense, excellent. If it's not making sense, don't do the deal. And what kind of expenses do people typically underestimate? The most common, taxes, recalculating taxes. You have to call the municipality where the property is located. You have to speak with somebody about how taxes are going to get reassessed upon takeover based on your new purchase price, when that effect will take place, and how that change is going to roll out over the next few years. Sometimes it's instant, sometimes it's over the next few years, and sometimes they give you a range. You can be within $50,000 to $75,000 in taxes for year two, let's say. Go with the higher number. Assume that it's going to be $75,000 in taxes. You should do that. Number two for underestimating expenses is insurance. Insurance is out of control across the country, more specifically in storm areas like Florida, where I invest. You have to be dialed in with insurance, and insurance is one of the highest expenses. Our highest expenses are taxes and insurance. Find out exactly what those numbers are going to be. overestimate it a little bit. And then for the future, instead of doing it standard 3% year over year, you might want to speak to a broker about maybe a 10 or 15, 25% hike next year, especially today, especially after we just had Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton that destroyed a lot of Tampa. You have to be ready for that. If you're not ready, then you shouldn't be doing the deal. Maintenance costs. God, we messed up on maintenance costs. We assumed they were going to be anywhere from 750 to 800, but they're like 950 a unit a year. Make sure that you're calculating, and actually more than that. We've had over 1,000 a unit a year, even 14 up to 1,400 a unit a year, even after removing capex. So, how do you reduce those maintenance expenses? There's a lot of ways. So we're going through it now. We're having HVAC systematically, or sorry, routinely maintained. We're having septic systems routinely maintained. Little things like this can help. And we're tackling some future problems in our HVAC systems right now. These are all go into our maintenance, guys. And then there's little plumbing issues, which can be fixed if we put it back on the residents. And there's ways to do that. So please, 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 please don't underestimate taxes, insurance, maintenance expenses. Those are probably the ones that you can mess up a lot. Obviously, if you have a third-party property manager, property management is very straightforward. If you make $600,000 and they're 10%, they're going to get $60,000 for the year. Okay, that's very straightforward. It's based on what revenue is collected. Okay, but things that are not straightforward: taxes, insurance, maintenance costs. So make sure you know the property in and out. Make sure you know how the taxes, insurance are going to be calculated. Now, number 3. So number 1 was emotion versus numbers. Don't be over emotional. Number 2 is underestimating key expenses. Number 3 is due diligence is non-negotiable. Okay, you have to do a DD, due diligence period. And I got screwed on a deal. The deal that we lost about $60,000 in. We were doing our due diligence. We had a 30-day window to do everything, to close on the property, and I negotiated a due diligence period. Extremely important. Had I not done that, we would have probably been in worse trouble had we closed on the deal, because it uncovers things. You go through the due diligence period in order to figure out and uncover exactly what's going on. Otherwise, you're looking at a T12, let's say, that somebody provided you with that doesn't necessarily reflect actuals. It could be forged. It could be lied. When somebody's like, "Oh, we're selling on a 8 cap," right? Because they have $200,000 in expenses and NOI is $150,000. No, there's no possible way that all expenses are going to be $50,000 from a $200,000 gross income. Impossible. Assume at least a 50% expense ratio, please. So how do you find that out? The DD period. When you're doing your due diligence, you have to get all the inspections that you think you might need. There are going to be different types of inspections that you think you might need. You're going to do a lease audit. You're going to do request delinquency reports. You have to make sure that you do your real actual due diligence here, and you actually dive into the property to see what it's making. Because people can fib and forge and lie on those T12s, guys. It happens all the time. Or they can give you a T1 and pretend that it's and then annualize it. So you got to understand what you're looking at. Make sure you're analyzing everything. Ask a bazillion questions. If you're under contract, you got it. Obviously, don't do it until you're under contract. You're not going to be able to do any due diligence until you're under contract. But when you're in that due diligence period, this is your time to figure out, wait a minute, I had no idea the roofs are going to need to be replaced. We can only uncover that by doing a thorough inspection of the roofs. Now you're finding leaks everywhere and things that are going to be causing damage. So that could be a very expensive and costly thing that the seller could either give you a credit for, or you can negotiate on the purchase price. But you wouldn't know that. You can't just look at a roof, let's say, and walk a couple of the units and say, all right, we're good to go. No, you have to do thorough inspections. You also have to do maybe even get an engineer, depending on the property, guys. You really want to know what you're getting into. But a broker might push you into a deal and say, no, you don't need to get an engineer. The foundation is fine, but you notice some cracks. Go get that goddamn engineer. You might be like, wait a minute, why is the water bill so high? It should only be like $60 a month a person, a family. Why is it so high? Why is it 120? Perhaps there are leaks. Go scope the lines and find some leaks, because that can be a credit off of the purchase price. Now, people also underestimate their CapEx budget, and this is a huge one as well, because if your CapEx budget can greatly influence your returns. Okay, so if you're purchasing a property at 100 a door, it sounds awesome, right? And rents at 1,200. That sounds like you're beating the 1% rule. It sounds great, but then your CapEx budget is actually another couple $100,000. So it puts you at maybe all in price with closing costs and capex and reserves. Now you're at 130 a door and your rents are only 120. Maybe it doesn't make sense. I'm sorry, 1120, 1,120. Maybe it doesn't make sense now. Make sure you look at the expenses and make sure you get somebody that is professional if you are not professional, or if you don't have anybody on your team who is a capex expert. Number 3. So emotions versus numbers, number 1. Number 2, underestimating expenses. Number 3 is due diligence. And number 4, the right team members. So this goes back to number 3. Who on your team is qualified to do that capex budget? Who on your team has gone through the ringer and understands how to do a proper due diligence? Who on your team can handle this and make sure that you are not overspending? Make sure that the property is in functioning order. Make sure that the T12 is showing exactly what it needs to show and that you are pro forma-ing out actual numbers that you think your business plan can hit. Obviously, don't be unrealistic with your pro forma, especially if you've never done it before, never seen it before, because yes, it's possible that you could hit 3% year over year in rent growth. And let's say you wanted to even hit more than that by just renovating certain units. But you don't have any knowledge or experience with renovating units to a certain level. Let's say, oh, we're going to renovate 5 of the units at a B class level, even though this is a C class property. And then you put all this money into these units, but there's nobody in the neighborhood that can afford that rent. All right. So make sure you understand exactly what you're doing and be conservative, especially if this is your first, second, third, fourth deal. If this is your 10th deal, 50th deal, let's say, because I know people that have 50 deals and they've gone through 2 market cycles, you know what you're doing usually, and emotions are out of it, and you're just basing everything on the numbers and you understand how to do diligence. That's great. If not, just be a little conservative. And what happens in that instance? What happened to me? You don't win deals when you're conservative. And that's okay. It took me 3 years to get my first deal. Guys, it's okay. I was negotiating every single day, working every single day. I don't care what people think. Oh, I'm just going to buy this property because I am an important person and somebody's going to sell it to me and I have all this money. No, don't do that. Make sure you know what you're doing. I put in the time, put in the work. You have to do the same thing. And it might take you 3 years to get that first deal. Suck it up. While you're doing that, you're building your network, you're learning, you're educating yourself, and you're getting better. So who else do you need on your team? You need somebody who can underwrite well or handle financials, somebody that can manage a budget, somebody that can be boots on the ground and always be on the property. You need either yourself or your partners to be a property manager, or you need third-party property management team. You need somebody that knows how to build out budgets and capex, perhaps an engineer or somebody with a construction background. You need somebody that is able to really be focused hands-on with this property or whatever property you're going to choose for many hours a day. So if you don't have a lot of time, then you're probably not going to be the full-time asset manager on this deal. If you are somebody who's a doctor, a lawyer, then perhaps your role is going to be more of a KP. You're signing on the loan with your net worth. You're bringing capital to the deal and you're helping out here and there. But we need somebody on a multifamily project who is there every single day communicating with the property manager, whether that be third party or in-house. There's an asset manager that manages the property manager, and it is also a very hard and time-consuming job. And then number 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is start small and learn fast. It's okay, guys, to go and jump into a 2-unit, 3-unit, 4-unit, 5-unit. It's totally fine and actually acceptable and probably preferable. I know when I was starting out, my mentors were like, it's totally cool to start fine, but they were also like, it's basically the same thing to start big. But you have to have team members if you're starting big. If you're going to go alone, go small. You really shouldn't be doing 200-unit syndication on your first deal. You could do a 10-unit syndication, absolutely. 20 units, sure, why not? But make sure you're not bringing in you're not doing a 506C syndication where you're just bringing in people that you don't know. Okay, if you're doing your first syndication, it's your first deal, make sure it's your friends, your family, your loved ones, people that have seen you and know you very well, and that you are working have you been working on this education piece and or working on in the industry for some time. Whether or not you've closed the deal, it's okay. Maybe you've done fix and flips, that's relevant. Maybe you've done duplexes, that's relevant too. So that's okay. Okay, gang, we're going to recap. So let's avoid costly mistakes. Emotions versus numbers. Make sure you're sticking to the numbers. Don't underestimate expenses, taxes, insurance, maintenance cost, etc. Make sure that you have a thorough due diligence. And if you don't know how to do it, seek out somebody who does. Make sure you have the right team. You have an asset manager, an underwriter, financial analyst, let's say, a property manager, you have a boots on the ground partner, and then all the ancillary team members as well, such as a good legal team, cost segregation, insurance brokers, mortgage brokers, etc. And then you have to have, you can start small if you want. I would not recommend going with a 100-unit complex and syndicating that right off the bat. I would start small, do something, get involved so you start learning as you are earning, as we say. Here's one last thing. When it and how I lost money is we didn't understand lending well enough, and we ended up losing, not being able to get the loan completed in time for a 30-day close, and we needed a 15-day extension. The seller didn't accept it, so the seller took our $50,000 right off the bat, which was our hard money, hard EMD. Now, you can avoid this by understanding how lending works. I recommend talking to a number of lenders and being prepared for with multiple lenders and having a good relationship with them. So you want to start with local banks. You want to put a deposit in one of those banks and start building a relationship and talking to them about how they would analyze X deals. Make sure that they are open and honest with how they look at deals, how they would value a deal, whether they're going to give you 50, 60, 70% LTV, about what rate you're going to get, what the other terms are going to be as well, because it's very important. You might have a prepayment penalty, but your business model says you're going to sell in 2 years and there's a 3% prepayment penalty. Just make sure you know all these things. That's a little bonus. Anyway, team, if you're kind of fuzzy about any of this stuff, just reach out to me. Nico, I'm here for you. I love you guys. Let's rock on the roll. All right, and that's a wrap, Small Axe community. So I wanted to take a minute to say thank you so much for listening to the show. And if you liked it or got any value from it, it would really mean the world to me if you would share it with someone else and write a review. Remember, guys, keep sharpening those axes. Let's get out there. Let's crush it. Love you guys.